During the Great Depression, the New Deal Works Projects Administration, WPA, used unemployed writers and researchers from the Federal Writers Project to interview and document the stories of surviving African Americans who have been part of the American slave system up until the 13th Amendment. Produced between 1936 and 1938, the narratives retell the experiences of more than 2,300 former slaves. What you've read so far, what's your general emotion, just each of you, just as you're reading this, what are you feeling at the moment when you read some of this?
I don't know what emotions I have.
One of the things, and I'm sorry if I jump in front of anyone, one of the things I'm looking at is from the story he's telling, it almost seems as if, I don't want to say they expect pain to be a part of life just because that's all they know, but he's just talking about his life because that's all he knows. All he knows is his life. And it just seems to me that from what he's saying, all of his reflection, there are a lot of downs more than ups, but that's life. A lot of things he clearly saw that was, that were wrong, but that was his lot in life. Now that's what I've read so far from what he said. That might change as I'm reading, but anyone would want to be free from foolishness of any kind and any sort of, terror and horror. Anyone. But from what I've read, I haven't seen him mention any anger or anything like that. That's what seems to be missing. It could be because of his age, and I'm not going to say he's past the point of anger, but that's what I'm getting from it right now.
I'm glad you said that, because just in thinking of that, I was thinking, what is this bringing out in me? And actually, I still feel the same disconnect that I felt when I sat down. So I still can't necessarily relate to any of this, where, it's great to know their experience, but I don't feel that, oh man, why this or why that? And I think, like you said, the sense of anger. Like I'm not picking up on that drive, that determination, or this is our fight, we're going to get out of this. I didn't read that in what I've read thus far, so I still have a sense of disconnect with the actual passages. It's great knowledge to know, the mindset and his thoughts on the process, but for me personally, I still don't feel a connection.
Well, go on.
Does that bother you?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Then, and this isn't to try to shoot anybody down because. I might need some sort of edification or something myself, but should we have a disconnect?
No, we should not. But that's why I'm here to open myself up to that. What I'm saying is, as of now, I don't feel that connection. And I don't feel like, oh my God, I don't have no, I'm just like, okay, well, I haven't gotten to the point yet where I really see that fight and determination that when you think of a slave, I think of the fight, that they had in them instilled to get through that. Yeah. Because it does take it in order to get through that kind of torture. Yeah. But I don't really sense that right now.
Okay. But and I guess my next logical question is, if we are to develop some sort of connection, where do we take that? Is it a matter of having a society within a society? Is it a matter of, it's exactly, you see where it's going.
Yeah, I know. That's where the part comes with me. I'm a booster on that one. But yeah. But once I come to that revelation, what's next? How is that going to impact your life? Yeah. So that's the next step. Yeah.
I think what is bringing up is the fact that we know about slavery a little bit.
From television, for me.
Well, I don't know what, where your knowledge comes from, but I would say for the general run-of-the-mill American, a tiny bit about slavery. You haven't been immersed in it. You haven't really delved deep into it, and we talk about the pathology and understanding how people could do that. We haven't had these kinds of discussions, and we definitely haven't had a personal, looked at personal reflections of slaves themselves. That's what these represent. And like I said before, it wasn't until I was working on my master's degree that I actually was reading stuff like this. So I had never, my entire educational upbringing had never been exposed to the actual personalities and the persons themselves that were the slaves. And so I think that's probably where your disconnect might be coming from, is that you don't know these people. We know a little tiny bit about these people from a lot of the things that we've grown up seeing and maybe reading a little bit about in history books, a lot of which is skewed and needs to be read from another perspective and find some other sources, because just to tell the truth, our educational system doesn't
not at all.
Doesn't paint
Not at all.
an accurate picture of slavery. The pathology behind it, the repercussions that extend to today, that come right out of what we're reading now. None of those connections are made, and so we have a nation that has a history that most people are completely ignorant of. And we wonder why we can't get over the hump in terms of, race relations. It's because we've never really looked at it.
Exactly.
We have not dealt with it.
You're right.
White, black, everybody. And so that's one of the things that I've attempted to do. And just studying our history through slavery, and even going back prior to slavery, is just trying to get a better understanding of what we came through, so we can kind of maybe have a better understanding of where we are today.
Exactly.
So I think initially when you start, anybody that picks up the slave narratives and starts reading them, I think initially there is going to be a disconnect, because it's just not something that you've been exposed to, and you just don't know these people. But doing what we're doing now,
Exactly.
you're going to get to know them.
Exactly.
Sylvia?
I think that, like they both mentioned earlier about there was no anger captured here. My thought process, I'm wondering, because when this was written, this person was no longer enslaved. Okay? So I'm wondering, what was his true feelings at that time, at the time that this was written? What was his conditions? What was his thought process? And I do feel that this is necessary, and I feel a connection. The type of connection, not sure. Or maybe just the urge to want to know more. Maybe I'll say that. There's a drive that wants, I want to know everything there is to know, to bring about awareness. Because it does need to, it needs to be known, expressed, it needs to be taught, and I think it just needs to stay alive as a part of our history.